Hello, and welcome back to yet another NFL video. Mock draft Thursday, I guess. It's the two-round mock draft. The draft is coming up, every day, obviously, gets closer and closer. Doing the first two-round mock draft, some in-depth, thorough research went into this video, of course. So let's get right into it, man. Thank you for watching. It's going to be a lengthy video. All right. So let's get straight into it. There will be no trades in this mock draft, just straight, stick and pick, if you will. The Titans, I mean, I'm not even going to try and play around. It's Cam Ward, and the fact that it's Cam Ward has been reinstated in my mind because they have not made any significant quarterback moves. They didn't go get Russell Wilson or Sam Darnold or Geno Smith or Jameis Winston or Justin. They haven't gotten anybody in free agency that makes me think that they're not going to take Cam Ward here. I don't think they're trading the pick unless it would if they trade the pick to the Giants, for example, and they somehow got Shadur Sanders or I don't know actually. It's just I think the best possible outcome for the Titans, stick and pick Cam Ward and try and give him some help at receiver later on in the draft. Next up, the Browns. It's a similar situation to the Titans because they have not made any moves at quarterback. Let's look at the quarterbacks on the roster right now if you're the Browns. Because, I mean, Deshaun Watson, they did get Kenny Pickett. Sorry, they guys, they got the answer. It's Kenny Pickett. Do you guys really think Kenny Pickett is going to stop them from drafting a franchise quarterback? I've seen a lot of Abdul Carter talk, but it's like yeah, it would make their defense really good, but their defense was great 2 years ago and it didn't matter at all. It just if you don't have a quarterback, it's completely irrelevant. Like Shadur Sanders and listen, Deshaun Watson, the owner came out the other day and said that it was a swing and a miss on Deshaun Watson. So the nail was in his coffin of ever returning to the Browns, in my opinion. So they do not have a quarterback long term whatsoever. So until they have some sort of answer that's not named Kenny Pickett, I'm going to go with Shadur to the Browns at number two. They need some sort of quarterback help. Giants at three. Well, quarterback is off the table, but they made the move to get Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Listen, do I think the Giants are suddenly playoff contenders? No. Do I think it's a massive upgrade over Tommy DeVito? Yes, of course it is. So this is Brian Daboll's last year, in my opinion. I think he will be fired if they win like less than 8 games. So I think honestly, it's going to be a 1 year rental for Russ and Jameis. They'll miss the playoffs. They'll go 6-11 or something like that. They'll fire Brian Dable and draft a quarterback in the top five next year. But for now, let's just give them best player available. Well, I guess Abdul Carter may be best player available. These are the two best players in the draft, in my opinion. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. But the Giants' defensive line is stacked already. They already have Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns and guys like that. I don't think Abdul Carter would help them as much as a guy like Travis Hunter. He could be their number one boundary corner primarily. Also could help out in the receiving core. They brought back Darius Slayton. They still have Malik Neighbors, Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. So they have names at receivers. They're not great names necessarily. Besides Malik Neighbors, I think Travis Hunter could be your wide receiver two and maybe your CB4 or maybe your CB1 and wide receiver 3 or 4. It just depends on how they want to use him. But I think Travis Hunter would help the Giants the most out of anybody available. Patriots at 4. This is an awkward position because, again, Abdul Carter, he's sitting right there. But you have, you just brought in Harold Landry. You got, what's his name? Milton Williams in free agency. I think they got Milton Williams. So the D line, yeah, Abdul Carter could come in, but they spent a lot of money on defense this free agency. I feel like the goal, at least with the number 4 overall pick, has to be focused on the offense. So it's between Tetairoa McMillan or Will Campbell for me, or maybe Armand Membu. Tetairoa McMillan, I don't see him as a top 5 caliber guy. I've seen some more talk about Tetairoa McMillan, and my opinion on him has not changed. I still think he's the number 1 receiver, and he'll still be a top 10 pick. But I'm not as high on him as I was like a couple months ago. So for the Patriots, it's just draft the best offensive lineman. If you think that's Will Campbell or Armand Mimbu, there's room for discussion there, I guess. I'm going to go with Will Campbell. Just you have to protect Drake May. The offensive line was abysmal last year. They brought in Morgan Moses, bring in Will Campbell, and just try and give Drake May some more help. Jaguars at five. This is another weird spot. I could absolutely see. I think in my last mock draft, I had the Panthers trading up for this number five spot to draft Abdul Carter. I could absolutely see the Bears doing the same thing as well. So I think the Jaguars, it would be really smart for them to trade down to number eight or number 10. But let's say they stick and pick right here. Um, Abdul Carter, this is the thing. A lot of the teams, I understand how good Abdul Carter is, but the Giants, they have Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. The Browns, they have Myles Garrett. The Patriots brought in Harold Landry. They've invested a lot of money in the defense already. The Jaguars have Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker. It's like a lot of the teams that could take him, I just don't think they need him. I think they have other bigger needs. For the Jaguars, I think the interior of the defensive line could use some help. I also think Tedero McMillan would play a bigger impact than Abdul Carter on this team, but I'm going to address the interior of the defensive line. And honestly, there's not a pick that I love here for the Jaguars. That's why I would like for them to trade down. But Mason Graham at five is good value, maybe the second best pure defensive player in the class, depending on who you talk to, could be a real problem at the next level, especially concerning he's paired up with guys like Eric Armstead, Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen. That could really bring back the Saxonville era if everything goes right for the Jaguars. Raiders at number six. I mean, this would be the highest drafted running back since Saquon, I think. But I think Ashton Jeanty is absolutely worthy. It's the perfect storm, right, of a generational running back talent combined with a team who has the worst running back room in football. The Raiders brought in Raheem Mostert, who's like they're currently their running back one, but he did next to nothing last season. So Ashton Jeanty at six, it just seems like a match made in heaven. Pete Carroll loves to run the football. Well, not his last couple years in Seattle, but we like to think of him as a guy who loves to run the football. It just makes so much sense to me. The Raiders need some sort of a run game ever since they let Josh Jacobs go, and Ashton Jeanty is the perfect solution to that. Jets at seven. Recently, I've been falling in love with the idea of drafting Armand Mimbu right here. The Jets are another team, just like the Jaguars. I don't love any options right here at number seven. Abdul Carter, I mean, you could sell me on that, but the Jets are another team where it feels like the Jets' offensive line is perennially garbage, like constantly in a state of the Jets having a bad line. They drafted Olu Fashanu last year out of Penn State. You could draft Armand Mimbu this year out of Missouri and just have your franchise left tackles and build the rest of your offense around that. That just seems like the best, most common sense option, in my opinion. So let's go with Armand Mimbu here out of Missouri, number seven overall. Panthers at eight. It is probably unrealistic for the Panthers to sit at eight and be able to draft Abdul Carter. But I feel like I made very sound arguments for why all of these teams would pass on Abdul Carter. And I also think there's a valid claim to be made that the Panthers or the Bears or any team for that matter could trade up to number four, five, seven, and draft a guy like Abdul Carter. But like I said, no trades. Abdul Carter falls to number eight, and the Panthers scoop him up to be the key figurehead, if you will, of their defense moving forward. Panthers, another team, by the way, spent a lot of money on that defense this offseason. Saints at number nine. I mean, this is a Tedero McMillan spot. The Saints wide receiver room is a complete joke. Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed got hurt last season. Rashid Shaheed suffered a major, I think it was an ACL tear. He may never be the same player again. And Chris Olave, in my opinion, Chris Olave is one concussion away, for sure, two concussions away from retiring from football medically. So the Saints do not have any long-term options at wide receiver right now. So they need help. Tedero McMillan, consensus, is the number one receiver in the draft, and he has a physical profile unlike anybody else, a size speed combination. He is a freak, and the Saints need help. So Tedero McMillan to be the Saints' new, well, if just based off last season, he is the new wide receiver one for the Saints at the moment. Bears at number 10. You have a lot of options. In this particular instance, I understand that I've been going offensive line a lot for the Bears. However, they made three additions to the interior of their offensive line through free agency. Now, guys like Joe Thuney are on 1 year deals. Braxton Jones, long term, I think is replaceable. So they could still go. It doesn't rule out the possibility of going offensive line here. I think Tyler Ward at this spot, not to replace Cole Kmet, but to kind of demote Cole Kmet and be just a new tight end tandem there is really intriguing. There's pretty much no wrong answer for the Bears at this spot. I don't love any option because Will Campbell and Abdul Carter and Ashton Jeanty are off the board. So I just think I don't love the ensemble of pass rushers that the Bears have right now. So go ahead and take your pick. Who do you think the second best pass rusher is in this class after Abdul Carter? There's a lot of debate surrounding that. So I'm just going to go with Mike Green. Give me the guy with the most production. And listen, there's talk about Mike Green playing at a small school and doing it against a lesser level of competition. And I think a lot of that stems from his um, past with some sort of allegations or stuff that's been disproven. But his head coach, previous Marshall head coach, was on the Alabama staff during an era where they had a lot of great generational NFL level defensive linemen. And he said that Mike Green could have absolutely played on that Alabama team and been a star on that Alabama team. So I think his talent is going to translate pretty much, is what I'm trying to say. It's not just because he played at a small school. 49ers at 11. 49ers are a team who now have a lot of holes on their roster after pretty much they didn't let everybody walk. They tried to bring back guys like Dre Greenlaw, for example, but nobody came back. They lost several starters on defense, especially, but a few on offense as well. So they have holes all over the place now. You could go offensive line, you could go linebacker, cornerback. I am going to go cornerback because I think you have a guy, Will Johnson, even though he went from being like a consensus top five, top six pick to now sliding outside the top 10 in most mock drafts. And listen, if the injury concerns are a problem, apparently he has turf toe as well as some sort of a hamstring issue. But when he's healthy, his size, speed, instincts, he profiles to be a true wider or not, sorry, a cornerback one at the next level. And keep in mind the 49ers just lost Charvarius Ward, so they're in need of a number one cornerback. So Will Johnson could potentially come in there and fill Charvarius Ward's now empty position. Cowboys at 12. Cowboys, another team where you can convince me on a whole lot of issues. I typically lean wide receiver here, but you also could address both the offensive and defensive lines. But I just think wide receiver makes too much sense here, especially considering the options between Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka. But I'm going to go with a guy in state who has been rising postseason, really. Matthew Golden came on very strong in the latter half of the season for Texas, and he definitely helped his draft stock by running the fastest 40 time of any receiver. I believe he was the only guy to go sub 4.3 with the 4.29. So give me Matthew Golden out of Texas on the Cowboys. And according to Steve Smith, the only other guy outside of Tedero McMillan who has the wide receiver one potential. Now, they have CeeDee Lamb, but Matthew Golden obviously is going to benefit a lot from CeeDee Lamb getting the majority of the defense's attention. Dolphins at 13. I've been going safety consistently for them because they did end up losing Javon Holland via free agency. But listen, the offensive line has to be addressed at some point. I just don't think Tua has been given enough protection in his career. And Teron Armstead, I think, is at the end of his rope, if you will. So they need some long-term answers on the offensive line. And looking at the options here, you have a lot. I mean, Kelvin Banks, Josh Simmons. You could go down the line and look at a guy like Josh Connerly. I'm going to go with Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Um, couldn't go wrong with Kelvin Banks either, in my opinion. But Josh Simmons, I think the Dolphins, if you're going to address offensive line, Josh Simmons is looked at very highly, depending on who you talk to. Colts at 14, listen, it's one of the most boring picks because it makes the most sense. Tyler Warren to the Colts. Look at the analysis here. 40+% of people take Tyler Warren right here. And it's just because it makes so much sense. I mean, he's not just a receiving tight end. He does so much more. He is a complete player. He can attack you in a multiple of ways. And when you look at the potential of adding Tyler Ward, this is the argument here. If you give Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, A.D. Mitchell, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Micah Pittman, there is that is one of the best assembly of weapons in the NFL, not just for the like that is amazing top to bottom. That is six high caliber weapons at your disposal. There are no excuses for Anthony Richardson if he doesn't make it work with all that help around him. Falcons at 15. It is going to continue to be front seven for me. And I like the move that they made to bring in a guy like Leonard Floyd from the 49ers. They also have young guys stepping up like Braylon Trice did not play last year. So they have a few options now at pass rusher. I'm still going to address the front seven, but from a different angle. I'm going to go with Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Still provides you the much needed help with the pass rush, but also can help you as a just stand up linebacker in spots, cover tight ends, running backs. He offers a little bit more than just as a pass rusher. So it still addresses their need of getting after the quarterback, but it also gives you a guy who can you can use and line up in a multitude of ways. So I like that pick for the Falcons right there. Cardinals at 16 here. Cardinals are a team. A lot of these teams here in the late teens, you could go a number of ways. Um, for me, listen, former Eagles defensive coordinator, he made a big splash by bringing in Josh Sweat. I think he also wanted to bring in Milton Williams, but Williams, of course, was a highly sought after free agent. I just think the Cardinals still, they didn't do it last draft, and I expect them to. I really thought that they were going to address the interior of this defensive line. They have not done it yet, so I'm going to do it right here. Give me Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, and he has been talked about very highly. His athletic upside is just off the charts. He's not as put together as some of the other prospects, but people think that if he kind of develops accordingly, he could be an all pro level player. So I like the upside for that for the Cardinals. Bengals at 17. Listen, until the Trey Hendrickson issue gets resolved, at the end of the day, I do think he'll return to the Bengals on some sort of a deal. Until that gets resolved, though, I'm going to move forward with the assumption that pass rush, the whole defense really, but pass rush especially, is a major gaping hole on this team. So we're going to go with an edge rusher. And I'm going to give him James Pierce. James Pierce, for some reason, there's a whole lot of guys down here that get talked about. Donovan Ezeraku, Shamar Stewart, Nick Scorton, um, Landon Jackson, Jack Sawyer. There's a lot of guys that get talked about in this class. But James Pierce, I feel like for some reason, just does not get the attention and the praise that he deserves. I mean, people try and act like he had a bad season. He had one of the best pass rush win rates, I think, in the country last year, playing in the SEC. So yeah, I'm still high on James Pierce. I'm still high on him being a top 20 pick. I'm not buying into the anti James Pierce sentiment. Seahawks at 18. There's a lot of options here. I think Jahad Walker, or not Jahad Walker, Jahad Campbell would be a good option. I wouldn't mind a guy like Malachi Starks or Nick Emanwari. I think a cornerback like Jade Barron. There's a lot of ways we could go here that would really help the team. Even wide receiver. I mean, the potential of getting guys like Luther Burden, pairing Emeka Buka back up with JSN. There's a lot of things I like here, but offensive line has to be the goal. We have not addressed the interior of our offensive line yet. Kelvin Banks is not an interior offensive lineman. But if we draft a guy like Kelvin Banks, we could then move a guy like Abraham Lucas to the interior. And I think it makes our entire offensive line better collectively. So give me Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas at 18. Great pick for the Seahawks. I am hoping that we address offensive line with our first overall pick, first round pick, I should say. Buccaneers at 19. I've consistently been going either cornerback or edge rusher because it feels like the rest of their offense, especially, is kind of just figured out. So I mean, there's a lot. Here's the thing: you got Jade Barron, you got a lot of good edge rushers, and you got Jahad Campbell. All of those would be either A or A plus picks for the Buccaneers here. So you cannot go wrong here, in my opinion. I am going. Here's the thing. I've made the case, and remember, this is a 2 round mock draft, so I'm going to be able to come back around to a lot of these teams and address other needs in the second round. There's a lot of good edge rushers. It's a very deep front seven class. There's not a whole lot of Jahdae Barons, in my opinion. Quarterback from the first round to the late first round to the second round talent, it falls off way faster than the edge rushers do, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Jahdae Barron here, pair him up with a guy like Jamel Dean, and hope the Buccaneers secondary improves dramatically as a result. Broncos at 20. I have been on record saying that I really like the Broncos receiving room. They got rid of Lil Jordan Humphrey, so now it's Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Deshaun Vele. I like those guys. I think a tight end would be very beneficial here. However, I cannot pass up. I refuse to pass up on the potential of Luther Burden. Listen, Cortland Sutton, he's not that old, but he's getting up there in age. And you can pick, honestly, between Deshaun Vele and Troy Franklin, who you like more. Luther Burden's a guy who is going to be a fixture. I have very high hopes for him, especially paired with a guy like a Bo Nix. Luther Burden's upside. I like it a lot, okay, especially with a team like the Broncos. Steelers at 21 here. I keep trying to think of other avenues I could explore with the Steelers and other spots and positions and team needs and things like that. But brother, they don't have a quarterback. I will not explore other options for the Steelers until they have a quarterback. I won't let them enter next season with Mason Rudolph as QB1. Maybe they don't sign Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they make a trade for Kirk Cousins or something like that. But until they make a move, they need a quarterback. I'm drafting Jackson Dart at number 21, and we're just gonna have to see what happens. I mean, I refuse to let the Steelers go into next season with Mason Rudolph as QB1. Something needs to change before I stop drafting a quarterback for them at number 21. Chargers at 22. Listen, Colston Loveland, obviously, that's the most common pick. Just look at the odds here. 34%, right? Colston Loveland. And I get it, right? However, Emeka Egbuka is staring you right in the face. They need help at receiver. They lost Josh Palmer. I mean, it's just a Josh Palmer replacement right here. Emeka Egbuka, Lad McConkey, Quentin Johnston. I like that a lot. I know some people don't like Quentin Johnston, but I love that receiver trio for the Chargers. Give me Emeka Egbuka, and you should be very happy if you're a Chargers fan moving forward. Packers at 23. They also could use receiver. But if you look at their cornerback situation, they brought in Nate Hobbs, right? Replaced basically pretty much a swap Eric Stokes for Nate Hobbs. Jaire Alexander, it looks like he is not going to be returning to the Packers. So now you're looking at DBs outside of Nate Hobbs. Carrington, Valentine, Keyshawn, Nixon. That's not good enough. We have to get the Packers a cornerback here. And the one who has been rising up draft boards primarily because of his 40 time would be Maxwell Harrison. And not too long ago, they drafted Eric Stokes in the first round because of how fast he ran his 40. So they've done it before. They'll do it again. Draft Maxwell Harrison at number 23. Vikings at 24 here. They also need help in the secondary. They lost Cam Bynum to the Colts. I gave them Nick Emenwari here last time. I'm going to go with a different type of player. Malachi Starks can do a little more. I'm more confident with a guy like Malachi Starks in coverage, playing that nickel position, guarding the deep side, the middle third of the field. I just think they're different types of players. Um, I don't know how much longer Harrison Smith is going to be playing. Maybe this is his last year. They have to really look into long-term answers at safety. I don't know why they wouldn't bring back Cam Bynum on it, obviously, but whatever. Malachi Starks at 24. I think the Vikings would be very happy with that. Texans at 25. Listen, they had an offensive line problem, and that's before they traded away their best offensive lineman. So I will not entertain anything outside of offensive line for the Texans right here. So give me a tackle here. Josh Conerly, I think, is the best option of all the guys remaining out of Oregon. Give me Josh Conerly at number 25. Texans have created a massive need on the offensive line. Rams at 26. I think I went with Jahad Campbell last time. This time, however, I'm going to go with a different option here. Give me Colston Loveland. Give me Colston Loveland out of Michigan. I think Tyler Higbee, he's either not there anymore or he's getting way too old. I think they already brought in a guy like Devontae Adams. I just think Colston Loveland could add a little something to this offense. Listen, let me blow my nose. Allergies have been killing me the last couple of days. All right. Colston Loveland to the Rams, like I said, gives them a new option or a new weapon offensively. And he's been falling a little bit here. I think everybody has him going to the Chargers, obviously. But if he doesn't go to the Chargers, I think the Rams are the next best option for him in the first round. Ravens at 27. I mean, they have a lot of holes as well. You could talk about secondary, you could talk about D line, offensive line, even receiver, really. Uh, Pass rush has been a real issue for them, though. I'm going to go with the defensive line. Give me Donovan Ezaraku. People just talk about this guy. Man, there's so many guys in the pass rush category here who have so much upside. Donovan Ezaraku is definitely one of those guys. Let's take a look at him. I have not talked about him a lot during the draft process, but people are really high on him. I mean, 14 sacks last season, 6'2", 247. I don't know, man. I just like Donovan Ezraku. Look at the grades, too. 90.5 pass rush grade last year. He has a ton of upside. And look who he played his best games against as well. Big Ten competition, ACC. He did not just dominate against these smaller level schools. He did it against some big name teams. Let me exit out of here quickly. So yeah, Donovan Ezraku to the Ravens. Lions at 28. A lot of options for the Lions. I've gone D line pretty consistently here, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit. They lost Kevin Zeitler to the Titans in free agency, and I feel like the Lions, they place a lot of emphasis on their offensive line. So I'm going to go with the replacement on the interior, and I actually like this pick a lot. Give me Gray Zabel, North Dakota State prospect. I like that a lot. Move him to guard, just fill him in at right guard, and watch the results just manifest in front of you. I think that is a really good underrated pickup there for the Lions. Commanders at 29. This is going to be quarterback for me. They brought in Marshawn Lattimore, but I still think they have. I mean, just look at the guys they missed on Benjamin St-Juste, Emmanuel Forbes. Bringing in Lattimore does not cover both of those needs. They still need a boundary corner, in my opinion. Trey Amos out of Ole Miss, the last guy I think is really capable of going in the first round, fills that boundary corner need for the Commanders. Bills at number 30. Kind of similar situations, the Buccaneers, if you will. Yeah, linebacker, quarterback, and edge. The offense is pretty much taken care of. I'm going to go with Jahad Campbell, pretty much his best player available. Stick him in at linebacker right away. They've obviously been losing a stream of guys, like established vets that have been there for a while. So Jahad Campbell comes in, and I think you're very happy with that if you're a Bills fan. 31 the Chiefs. I mean, it's pretty much just best player available. I am not on board with just drafting a tackle every single year. You got to at some point develop the guys you've been drafting the last couple of years. Um, they did lose Treshaun Wharton to the Panthers through free agency. How about we bring in a replacement for him, Walter Nolan, right there? He could have tremendous upside playing next to Chris Jones. He could be a monster on the Chiefs' defensive line. Then the defending Super Bowl champions, the Eagles. Listen, I promise you, I don't just give them Georgia players 24/7. It just so happens that there's always a good Georgia player available for them to draft. Michael Williams on the D line, pair him up with all the guys, Jordan Davis, Jalen Walker, Nolan Smith. It just makes too much. Just give the Eagles the Georgia D line, man, and watch what happens. Once again, we blow my nose again. Allergies have been destroying me. All right. Getting into the second round now. Browns at number 33. I just feel like, listen, they need help all across the offense. I mean, literally everywhere. But The best player available, in my opinion, right here, Amarion Hampton. Heavy shades of Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb. Shadur Sanders and Amarion Hampton come in, and some amazing things really could take place here. I mean, Amarion Hampton being the bell cow, number one running back, and Shadur coming in, throwing to guys like Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman and David Njoku. I think they could actually be doing something there if they brought in Shadur and Amarion Hampton. Giants at 34. Gave them Travis Hunter earlier. At this spot, listen, we could not give them a quarterback. This might be a pretty unpopular pick right here. We could not give them a quarterback in the first round. They have Russell Wilson. They have Jameis Winston. I think Jalen Milroe is worth a shot in the second round here because obviously the fans want a quarterback, right? That's not named. That's not a 1 year rental. They want some sort of long term answer. Maybe Jalen Milroe's not the answer, but he certainly has tools. He has upside. Let him sit for a year behind Russ and Jameis Winston and just see what happens. Titans at 35. I'm going to go with Nick Horton out of A&M. We gave them Cam Ward in the first round. And listen, you could absolutely, positively go with a wide receiver here. I'm not doubting that. But they did lose Harold Landry in free agency. He was their best defensive player, in my opinion. You need some sort of replacement for that. I'm going to go with Nick Horton out of Texas A&M. Next up, Jaguars at 36. Went with Mason Graham for them. They have lost a number of receivers. They need some sort of help for pass catchers for Trevor Lawrence. So let's go with the guy whose name has been rising postseason. That's Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. A lot of people talking about this guy going near the top of the second round. Raiders at 37. Gave them running back. They still need help at receiver. It's really just Jakobi Meyers and Brock Bowers for now. Let's give them another option there. And let's go with Elliot Iomanner out of Stanford. Big body, outside receiver. They don't currently have that on the roster as far as I'm concerned. That could be a viable option for Geno Smith to throw some deep balls to. Patriots at 38. I don't think wide receiver really is an option here. I mean, they brought in Stephon Diggs, right? So now you got Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Jalen Polk. They got a lot of options, right? Young receivers. So I don't think they need a receiver right here. They already have a pretty crowded room. Let's go with a running back. I don't think they're high on Rhamondre Stevenson moving forward. He kind of has a bit of a fumbling problem. Let's go with a potential Rhamondre Stevenson replacement. Someone may even be a little bit better than Rhamondre Stevenson. That's Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State, national champion. Obviously came from Ole Miss, monster seasons over there, showed that he could still do it elsewhere. Quinshon Judkins will be a very productive running back for whoever takes him in the second round. Bears at 39. We went with Mike Green at number 10. At number 39, I do think running back is an option for them. They have Roschon Johnson. They have DeAndre Swift. I don't think either of those guys will be there 2 years from now. So let's go with the guy who will be. Cam Skattebo out of Arizona State. I was worried, honestly, that teams would not appreciate what he did in the college football playoff and that he would kind of be relegated to a fifth or sixth round pick. That is not the case. Apparently, people are really high on him, and I'm glad because he had a monster showcase this season that he deserves to be talked about near the top of the second round. Saints at number 40. Gave them Teddy McMillan. Now we have to address the rest of areas of concern on this team. I don't think running back is an option right now. I still think they could roll with Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller. I do think D-line is something that needs to be addressed, though. So, listen, Shamar Stewart, I am not that high on him because, listen, the athletic profile is off the chart, right? He is talked about as being a generational caliber athlete just based on what he did in the combine. But if you've never had more than 2 sacks in a season, I got to stop and wonder what your upside truly is because the competition is not going to get easier in the NFL. And listen, we've seen a lot of guys who have done better in the NFL than they did in college, and that's fair. But for me to put you that high on my radar, you got to have some level of production at the college level. Now, 33 hurries is impressive, but I don't know. I'm worried about Shamar Stewart, but We're going to give him to the Saints here at number 40. Back to the Bears. Number 41. It's kind of just best player available here. And listen, Kevin Byard, he's getting up there in age. Why not just look for a guy whose name has been shooting up draft boards lately, Nick Emenwari, falling here to number 41. And now here's two guys here. Shamar Stewart, Nick Emenwari, whose names have been skyrocketing postseason. And Shamar Stewart, I explained to you, he just doesn't have the college production, in my opinion, to be warranted or talked about as a first round pick. Nick Emenwari, though, he is just a debate between, I don't think multiple safeties are going to go in the first round. So it's kind of just a debate between Malachi Starks and Nick Emenwari. I went with Malachi Starks for the Vikings. So yeah, Nick Emenwari ends up falling in this particular mock draft. He could go all the way as high as number like 13, 14, in my opinion. Jets at 42. Uh, it's a tough one. Gave them uh, Armand Membu at number 7, number 42 here. I like the idea of addressing the defensive line. I'm going to go with Derek Harmon out of Oregon, pair him next to Quentin Williams, and see if he could not benefit from that tandem. Blow my nose again. 1 second. Oh, this shit's brutal. All right. 49ers at number 43 here. We gave them a quarterback earlier in the draft. Right here, I think they have to address the offensive line. I'm going to go with a guy that's versatile and whose name has been quietly rising as of late out of Ohio State, Donovan Jackson. Versatility, could play at tackle, but also has the experience of playing guard at Ohio State. I like the versatility things he offers there for the 49ers. Cowboys at 44. Gave them their wide receiver. Running back, I think, has to be the move going forward. They brought in guys like Javonte Williams and what's his name, Miles Sanders, but I don't think either of those guys are long-term solutions. I think we're going to look for their long-term solution. I'm going to go with TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State. Obviously, drafting Zeke worked out pretty well for them. We'll see if TreVeyon Henderson cannot keep up that tradition. Colts at 45. Gave them Tyler Warren, of course. They had some massive losses on the interior of their offensive line. I am going to try and make that up for them right here at the guard position by giving them Tyler Booker out of Alabama. Depending on who you talk to, possibly the best true interior offensive lineman in this class. Like I said, depending on who you talk to, people have him going in the top 20 in some mock drafts. So keep an eye on how far he may or may not fall. Falcons at 46 gave them Jalen Walker. At this spot, listen, they have Darnell Mooney. They have Drake London. I don't love their options at receiver outside of those guys. You got guys like Ray McLeod, who's an option, but I think receiver certainly is an area you can look to address. Jack Beck had a massive season last year at TCU. Nobody talks about him. He's a big body receiver, great deep threat. I like his upside at the next level. Falcons, let's spend a second round pick on him. Cardinals at 47. We already gave them Kenneth Grant. I think their cornerback room has some room for improvement, if you will. So I'm going to go with a guy who has major physical attribute upside, and that's Javon Revel. Suffered a season-ending injury very early into last season, but if he is able to bounce back from that, his size and speed combination looks like Tariq Woolen 2.0. So if that works out, Cardinals obviously willing to take that chance in the second round. Dolphins at 48 here. Gave them an offensive tackle right here. Let's not forget, they lost Christian Wilkins only 2 seasons ago. I don't think they've found a replacement for him yet. Let's try and give them one right here. Darius Alexander out of Toledo. Massive run stuffing presence there on the interior of the defensive line. Bengals here. We addressed the D line already. I think it's about time we look to give Joe Burrow some help on the interior of the offensive line. Let's go with Jonas Savaiinaea out of Arizona, another guy who's been talked about as a real potential star at the guard position. Seahawks at 50. Pretty much back-to-back picks here. What do I want to address as a Seahawks fan? I like the signing of Cooper Kupp. It's pretty much a one-year deal, though. I would like to see more long-term options. I would like to see a DK Metcalf replacement because both Cooper Kupp and JSN Neither of them really provide us the big outside presence that DK provides. So why not we draft a big body, Ole Miss receiver who provides us an outside weapon? I am very, very high on Trey Harris this year. I really hope the Seahawks take him. He blew me away at times. The guy had like 900 yards in 4 games last year at Ole Miss. If he would not have got hurt, he would have absolutely been Biletnikoff winner, all that. He was a monster last year at Ole Miss. He's not completely polished and refined as a receiver, but man, he could destroy some people at the next level. I'm very hopeful that the Seahawks get their hands on Trey Harris. Broncos at 51 gave them a receiver. The Broncos D line is very good. I think they led the league in sacks last year actually, but they have a lot of guys whose contracts expire next year. Obviously, they're not going to be able to bring back everybody, so it's wise to look at potential replacements through this year's draft. I'm going to go with Princely Allen, another guy out of Ole Miss who just had a breakout season. Came from Florida, I believe, and really showed how well-rounded of a pass rusher he has become. Broncos take him at 51. Back to the Seahawks here at 52. I do not agree with the PFF uh, simulators needs. It says we need an edge rusher. The Seahawks have on the team currently Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, Leonard Williams, Uchenna Nwosu, and who else? And we brought in Demarcus Lawrence. Those are 5 edge rushers we have on the team currently. Why the hell is edge rusher listed as a position of need? We do not need any more edge rushers. What we need are interior offensive linemen, receivers, and I think a guy who could be a potential boundary corner for us. Here's a guy whose name has not been talked about a whole lot, but earlier in the draft process, he was talking about a surefire top 20 pick. Where the hell is the Benjamin Morrison coverage? What the hell happened? He had a season ending injury last year, but he still plays football. He's still eligible in the draft. Listen, this is a pretty big risk here because you're banking on not only him being healthy, but him being able to translate to the next level. But the Seahawks, we're not asking him to be a wide receiver one. We're asking him to be better than Trey Brown and Mike Jackson. I think that's absolutely possible. And if Benjamin Morrison hits, oh my goodness, we have the best quarterback room in football, no questions asked. So, man, if we could get Kelvin Banks, Benjamin Morrison, Trey Harris, oh my goodness, the Seahawks would knock the draft out of the park in the first 2 rounds. Buccaneers at 53 here. We gave them Jahdae Barron. And I said specifically the reason I did that is because there is a wide variety of edge rush prospects still available here in the second round. Let's take a look at them. The guys I was referring to: Landon Jackson, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, just to name a few. I'm going to go with Landon Jackson here. Had a very impressive combine. He shows some just freakish physical attributes. Mix that in with what he showed on film last year at Arkansas. Landon Jackson could be a very great steal for anybody in the second round. Packers at 54. I talked about wanting to get them a receiver. Uh, Gave them a quarterback in the first round. They have some big needs at receiver. It's not that they don't have talented receivers; they just don't have any high end receivers. Like Jaden Reed's their best receiver statistically, but I don't think he's a wide receiver one. And this guy, I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver one either. He's just another really good receiver, in my opinion. Xavier Restrepo had a very he didn't test well, but here's the thing: the guy showed on tape why he's a top level receiver, in my opinion. Amazing hands, good separation, um, great after the catch. Like, who cares about his top end speed? He beats you with route running, finding the holes in the zone, and just getting his hands on the football. I really like Xavier Restrepo as a player here. So Packers at 54, I think that'd be a good fit for him. Chargers at 55. This has to be D line, in my opinion. Interior defensive line, most likely. They lost guys like Poona Ford to free agency. Also lost guys like Joey Bosa. They need some more help on the defensive line. I'm not going to go edge rusher. I'm going to go with Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. Big run stuffer up the middle. I like that for the Chargers. Bills at 56. Gave them, I think, gave them Jahad Campbell in the first round. I think cornerback is something you could look to, especially considering they got rid of guys like Kaiir Elam. So I'm going to go with one of the possibly the best remaining cornerback on the board, Azariah Thomas, out of Florida State. One of the only positive things that took place on that team last season. Panthers at 57 with Abdul Carter earlier. This is going to be a receiver for me. I think just because Xavier Legette and Adam Thielen are on the team, that does not mean you cannot take a receiver right here. Take your pick. Jalen Royals making a name for himself. I think Savion Williams, though, with his size and also, by the way, his ability to play multi, he took snaps at running back. I think. I mean, yeah, player on the line in the backfield as a returner. He just offers you a lot of things that I mean, not other like other players not don't necessarily give you the production and the level of versatility that a guy like Savion Williams provides for you. So I like his upside there on the Panthers specifically. Next up, Titans at 58. I already gave them a tackle. It's not over. I still think they need help on the offensive line. So I'm going to double up in a sense. Give me Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota. I think that he more profiles as a guard than a Josh Farley does, but the Texans need so much help on the offensive line. I absolutely would not mind them doubling up right here. Next up, Ravens gave them defensive line at this spot. I think they need a safety to replace Marcus Williams. So I'm looking at potential safeties here. How about the All American Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame? By the way, was he teammates with Kyle Hamilton at one point? Maybe, maybe not. But now you have a full Notre Dame safety duo. I like that a lot. I just put that together right now in the moment. Lions number 60. I think I gave them offensive line in the first round in the hopes that some good edge rushers would still be on the board. And what do you know? Jack Sawyer available at the end of the second round. This would be a home run for the Lions. Gray Zabel and Jack Sawyer. What a tandem right there. Commanders at 61. They went cornerback. I think protecting Jaden Daniels, sorry, is still an area of concern. They went and picked up a Laramie Tunsil. I still think they could make some improvements in the interior of that offensive line. So I'm going to go with an offensive tackle who I think could convert to a guard, and that's Wyatt Milam out of West Virginia. Bills at 62. Gave them Jihad Campbell, gave them a quarterback. Now, only area left to address is the defensive line. I'm going to go Jason Tuimoloau out of Ohio State. Had a massive performance in the college football playoff. I don't see a world where he falls out of the second round. Chiefs at 63 went with Walter Nolan. This is probably it's the same thing. Who do you think is the best player available here? I think running back is certainly an area where they need to address long term. Caleb Johnson sitting right there. He could be a monster for Kansas City. So Caleb Johnson goes to the Chiefs. And the Eagles at 64, they could do anything. I mean, absolutely anything. I think it's interesting that they want to get rid of a guy like Dallas Goedert. I think we could look to give them a pass catcher at the tight end position. Elijah Arroyo had some massive moments last season at Miami. I think he could be a real threat on the Eagles offense, and especially considering the fact that Dallas Goedert's kind of been in and out in terms of his health. Elijah Arroyo, long term, could be a real weapon for the Eagles. So that is going to be it for my first, maybe only, two-man mock draft. Until my allergies get under control, I will not be sitting here for an hour anymore. This was brutal. But I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me scroll down so I can show you guys the entirety of the mock draft. Or not the second round, I guess. But hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. I will see you guys next time. Have a great day. Peace.